When Lexus first introduced the electrified RX 400h in 2006, it shocked the automotive world by storm. Not only because it was an SUV that got over 27 miles a gallon, but the combination of a 6-cylinder engine and an electric motor really made it fun to drive, especially for being an RX. Nowadays, I will admit, we seem to have found the replacement for displacement because we're using more turbochargers, more electric motors, and smaller engines. And this new RX 500h is a result of that. No more 6-cylinder engine, but today we're gonna find out and see how the Mac Daddy of the RX lineup holds up to its competition, the RX 500h F-Sport Performance. This stunning automobile in particular is a 2024 RX 500h F-Sport Performance in a really, truly sublime color, copper crest. It's a really nice color, especially in this trim. I do also like the luxury trims of the RX, and Nori Green will forever be my favorite color that you could get on the RX. This RX has just about every bell and whistle that you could choose from Lexus that brings the factory MSRP of this one as it sits to about $73,000, which does make it in line with its main rival in my eyes, the Acura MDX Type S, because it makes similar power. But if you look at its European rivals from Mercedes and BMW, even though this is a little bit slower, it is a bit cheaper. Now you'll notice Lexus really seems to be pushing the F-Sport Performance persona on this new RX quite a bit, and you may be wondering if it's any more powerful or aggressive for street driving than the typical RX. And I was surprised to find 6-piston front calipers on this thing with 2-piece brake rotors. They're about 15 inches in size. The RX 500h also has adaptive variable damping, so it can adjust based on driving conditions and also drive mode. And lastly, one of my favorite features that this has is the dynamic rear wheel steering, which is also standard on the 500h. It actually reduces the turning circle of the RX by almost 2 feet. It really is noticeable, and it can turn the rear wheels to make you turn tighter on U-turns and when you're parking, and also it can help you with higher speed cornering as well. However, if you're not necessarily looking for all that in your RX, Lexus does offer several other variations, starting at the base RX 350 that uses this same turbo engine but without a hybrid. That starts at about $52,000, right in line with the base MDX. Mind you, the MDX has a third row. Then we move up to the RX 350h, which I actually had some time with last year. That video will be up here. After that, we have the RX 450h Plus, which is a plug-in hybrid, uses the same powertrain as the RAV4 Prime and also the Lexus NX 450h Plus. And then finally, the range-leading one like this one, the RX 500h F-Sport Performance. That's its full name. There isn't a normal luxury trim of the 500h. You can see that Lexus offers many different variations of the RX to cater to various needs, but if you're looking for the sporty RX to match with the MDX Type S and some of its other competition, the 500h is the one to get. Unfortunately, it's not what I thought it would be. I guess fortunately, even though it isn't necessarily what I expected, it still is I'd say an impressive powertrain. This is a 2.4 liter dual overhead cam and turbocharged inline 4. This is the same engine that you'll find in the base RX 350. You'll also find this in the new Highlander, the new Tacoma, the new Land Cruiser, probably the new 4Runner as well. This is the new workhorse of Toyota, replacing the old 2GR V6. In this situation, this engine is paired to 2 electric motors. One is between the engine and the 6-speed automatic transmission, and the other one powers the rear axle. Lexus rates this powertrain at an overall 366 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque, right in line with the MDX Type S, because this thing is 4,700 pounds, and this system gets this to 60 miles an hour in just about 5.5 seconds. Something that the RX 400h was pretty good at was as fuel economy, and the RX 500h has thankfully improved as well. Lexus claims 27 in the city, 28 on the highway, and a combined rating of 27 as well. I have been getting about 23 mpg, but I have been driving this aggressively. If you drive this normally, I'm sure you'll hit 27 mpg in town easily. Now, even though the RX is based on a new platform, TNGA-K, the same one that you'll see on the new Highlander, the new Camry, and a few other unibody Toyota cars and light trucks, this is still about the same length as its predecessor at about 192 inches long. Mind you, this is only 2 rows. If you want a 3rd row, go for the Lexus TX. That thing has a lot of space in the 3rd row. Now on the RX, because this is an F-Sport performance model, it has these black 21-inch alloy wheels wrapped around Bridgestone Alenza all-season tires. I would expect at least a 255 in a performance SUV, but again, it's an RX. For me, the RX is a perfect size because it's not too big, but mind you, if you have children and you have a lot of things, the TX will be a better buy because the trunk back here will be bigger. For me, in the few days that I've had this, it's been a totally usable amount of space, but it is just about 30 cubic feet of volume. If you want a little bit more space, the 2nd row does fold with the power folding feature. I'm not going to make it go all the way down, but 46 cubic feet of volume overall in the trunk of this RX. There is, thankfully, a spare tire underneath here. It's not a full-size spare, but it is a spare. Lexus also provides a power outlet in the trunk and various LED lights so you can see inside. But in terms of towing, Lexus claims the RX 500h to tow about 3,500 pounds. That's what I would expect. This one doesn't have a hitch on it, but you can get one. Thankfully, we can get outside of the cold, well, inside and away from the cold. It's nice to be back in an RX. It's always such a nice place to be, even in the back seat. As you can see, I have a lot of space back here. I'm 5'9", the driver's seat is in my driving position, and I am lounging. I have inches of legroom. I can fit my feet under the seat. Even with the pano moonroof, I have a decent amount of headroom. It does intrude in space, so if you're a little bit taller than me, you might have trouble, but Lexus does make this rear seat power recline. On top of that, these 2 outboard rear seats are heated and ventilated. That's very nice as well. Of course, there's also a 3rd climate zone for the rear passengers, and also 2 USB Type-C ports and air vents. They really made the back seat of this feel very nice. There's also an armrest in the middle here with, again, 2 small cup holders, but at least there is some storage where you could put your phone, or you can make people hide their phones. Now we can get into the front seat. As you'll notice, this new era of Lexus has interesting interior and exterior door handles. The exterior door handles look like normal ones, but they're buttons. Inside, it's a bit of the same deal. There is an emergency release if you pull it like a normal handle, but if you just push out like a door, it just opens. But it's part of Lexus's safe exit assist. If a car is coming and you're parallel parked, it won't let your stupid passengers have your doors ripped off by another stupid driver. In addition to the newfangled technology this car has, it has push button start, as you would expect. This is the key fob for current Lexuses of this era. I quite like it. Very nice. This also does have remote start. I don't know if all of them have it, but if you click, and hold for like 5 seconds, the lights will start flashing, and then you can remote start your RX. I'm only mentioning it because this key doesn't have remote start on it, and if you want it, I feel like dealerships will tell you to buy an app that you have to pay a subscription to do this. To get away from my dealership rants, we can put our foot on the brake, press the power button, and listen to this thing whir to life. So once again, welcome to the interior of this 5th generation RX. I love being inside this car. I love being inside of every RX. And this interior really is just another calming, comforting place to be. Fit and finish up front is also very good. Soft touch materials everywhere, even on the very bottom of the door panel. Mark Levinson is a pretty good audio system. I'm not too good at explaining car audio, but you'll be pretty satisfied with this. It's nice to see that all 4 windows are automatic, and of course you have things like power folding mirrors. The steering wheel is also familiar to other Lexuses out there. It's 3-spoke and leather wrapped, and because it's this F Sport, it's perforated with white stitching. This wheel is heated as well, which right now, because it's cold outside, it works so nicely. The horn is important on the RX. Good sounding horn, but it's loud outside, but this interior is so quiet you can barely hear the horn. There's also buttons on the wheel as well, which go in conjunction with the heads-up display. The buttons on the left mainly control volume, audio, and Bluetooth controls, and the buttons on the right control some of the safety systems, cruise control, and also you can adjust the display. It sounds complicated, but I really notice myself seeing the heads-up display more than looking down at the buttons. Lexus thought about it. You can also see paddle shifters behind the wheel as well, and they feel like actual aluminum. Behind the steering wheel, you'll see that the headlights are automatic, and also on the right side, the wipers are automatic as well. As we look up at the gauges, you'll see that it's a digital setup, but it's not entirely a screen. I feel like at this price point, it would be nice to see a full digital readout. It would be a little bit more premium. You can't customize it a whole lot, but it does change depending on what drive mode you're in. And I have it set up to a more traditional looking theme. As we look at the main source of information on this RX, you'll see that this one has the optional 14-inch display that's on a lot of new Lexus and Toyota products. It's a very snappy system. I quite like it. I've had no real issues with it, besides that if you don't use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, which are both wireless, there's no dedicated home screen to this page, but I've started to stop complaining about that, I noticed, because I just use CarPlay anyway, so it's not a big deal. But the screen is very responsive, it's never laggy, and you can see all types of vehicle information in here as well. Down below that, attached to the screen, is the tri-zone climate control system, but the controls for the front are up here. You'll see that the temperature is actually adjusted by these physical knobs, which I like. Everything else is a soft button in the screen, but thankfully the climate controls don't move like in other cars, so it's not terrible. And also, when you put this into reverse, you have a 360 view camera. Of course, this has guidance lines that steer with the wheel, and also you can line up a hitch and things like that, but you can also do a wide view and a normal view, and when you put the thing into drive, you can see the front camera engage, the 360 cam, and also these Lexuses and Toyotas can stitch the cameras together to show you what's even underneath the car as well. Beneath that whole deal, you can see that there's 2 USB Type-C ports, which are for charging, and then underneath this hidden compartment is a whole other space that you can put your phone where the wireless charger is. There's 2 more USB ports and also more storage. You can fit a lot in this car. I appreciate that the shifter in this is more traditional than buttons, because I really don't like buttons. So this one, it's Prius-esque, but all hybrid Toyotas do this now, besides the trucks. Most importantly, the seats in this are good for me. They're very comfortable for me, but they might not be for everyone. If you're a little bit wider of a stature than I am, you might have some trouble with the thigh bolsters and maybe even the back bolsters as well. But for me, they're really supportive. It makes this pretty, I would say, fun to drive because you don't get thrown around as much. The front seats are heated and ventilated, and both seats have full range of power. And also this has adjustable headrests that can go backwards and forwards. Between the 2 front seats is the armrest, which is pretty soft with more of that stitching. There's also storage inside, which the driver can open or the passenger can open, and that reveals some storage where you can put your gum, not sponsored, but there's a great deal of storage everywhere inside this car. This one also has the optional electronic rearview mirror. If you don't want it, you can use it as a normal mirror as well, of course. But there's garage home link there as well. And something I also like a lot is the panoramic moonroof that you get on this RX. So, we're going to be taking this thing for a spin now. It's really great to be behind the wheel of the 500h. One of the parts that I love about it is the power, because you can catch up to lights like this. Let me see if the coast is clear. We can put myself in sport mode and give it some gas. It sounds good. It gets up to speed. It gets up to high speeds very well. It does sound like a 4-cylinder at higher speeds though. Unfortunately, these two slowpokes are gonna get in front of our fun time, but it does accelerate very well. You barely hear the engine, but when you do hear it, it sounds like what it is, and that's a 4-cylinder. But you can barely notice what that 6-speed is doing. It's so smooth. Because of this clown, I'm honestly going to wait about a minute. We can go in here, and as I take this turn, it takes turns so nicely with the 4-wheel steering. Since I filmed it, I can get it dirty so I can see how it does this. Making 3-point turns is really easy as well because of the tight turning circle, so you can give yourself plenty of time to get away from the dummies on the road. But hopefully, I know I'll catch up with this guy, but hopefully we have some space to have some fun. I'll wait for this Camry. Oh my goodness. So let's see. So this thing really does feel more front-wheel drive. In sport mode, steering does get a little bit firmer, but there is still a bit of a delay, not delay, but a disconnect between the steering wheel and the front wheels. But honestly, for being a new crossover, it takes these corners very well. Unfortunately, I can't properly send it like how I normally do, but it already handles these bumps and undulations on this road quite well. It's not sporty, but it has a nice dynamic, sure-footed feeling on the road. It pulls hard. It really pulls hard. And it corners very well too. You can throw it around, and it's actually very dynamic. The RX is not much of a dynamic crossover, but this is impressive. There's a man on a riding lawnmower. Thankfully, this Explorer is going straight, so we can take the more fun road in front of this Civic. Wow! And the 6-piston brakes, like the calipers, they bite pretty well. Under normal driving, they're not that great. This thing is really fun, but it's not the type of car that you want to be doing this all the time. Just because it feels big, but it totally can do it. This thing really has great power though. So, we're coming up on my final hours with the RX 500h. I think I'll miss this car quite a bit. I am, though, very interested to see how the RX 450h Plus is, because I think for an RX, that might be the best trim, because you can drive it in EV mode and you can also drive it with the gas engine as well. But this one, you do get the most performance out of it. Normally though, as you would expect, the 500h is very smooth. I have it in normal mode right now, but if you put it in sport mode, it does get a little bit firmer, but not by much. We'll get into sport mode a little. We do have a bit of an opening. As you can see, it has front cross traffic, but this is normal acceleration. It's so quiet. That's 60, and it's so quiet. It gets up to speed so easily. Like if you want an RX that really has no problem with accelerating, the 500h is the one to get. Of course though, the other ones are great too. Even the normal RX 350 has plenty of power, 271 horsepower. It's great at passing, and you can dart between people like this. It's fun for being a big it's like medium, mid-sized crossover. It hustles. It's fun. As we come up to the end of my week with this RX 500h F-Sport performance, I have really enjoyed my time with this car. I already knew I did, partially because I just like the RX already, but also Lexus just makes a damn good car. There's nothing that I really have had an issue with this RX about, other than, of course, it could have used a turbo V6 to really put Audi, BMW, and Mercedes up for their money, but this 4-cylinder powertrain is still very impressive, and it's honestly not really had me asking for much more. For an RX, it's fast, it's comfortable, it handles well. If you're looking at the 500h, I would definitely recommend test driving and possibly even taking one home. They are expensive, and honestly the 450h Plus is pretty intriguing too because you can drive it as an EV as well. Stay tuned for that video. I'm very eager to drive that, but I hope you enjoyed this in-depth look at Lexus's new fast RX. And before I really start getting cold, thank you all for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye peeps.